It is good to be home. We are just off about a 30-hour journey from West Africa, the city of Monrovia in Liberia. So Sarah, Bill, and I we got home about 11:30 last night and got a little bit of sleep after we put some things away and prepared for this morning. It is good to be home with you. And we're so thankful for a very rich trip, and we want to take some time to share this with you this morning. For those of you who have no idea why we would be dressed like this or where Monrovia is, we have a ministry here at Church of the King called Rise Liberia. It is actually something new of a ministry, not to the nation, but new in name and in vision. And Liberia is a small nation in West Africa. If you look at Africa and there's that kidney bean shape, it kind of sits right in the middle of that curve. We'll show you that here in a minute. And so Church of the King, you all have been involved, and we have been involved together for a long time. And Amy and I were connected with Liberia. 2011, I went with the team here, even though we were in Niagara and in Western New York. And just a very amazing place to be. The people are amazing there. It is the fourth poorest nation in the world. So little can go a long way in a nation like that. And so as we've launched the ministry of Rise Liberia, we have 50 children that we have sponsored, and isn't it amazing that in a very short time, 50 children have been sponsored. And so this trip was really about going to the facility, meeting with our on-site management team there, meeting all the children, and we have interviews of each one of the children. We asked all of them if they would write letters back to their sponsors. So we at least have a picture of most of them and a video of most of them, hopefully a letter from most of them, not everyone. There were 4 children who were sick and could not be there for the sponsored children, so we'll tell you a little bit about that as well. But we had a beautiful time, and we are excited just at all that we have brought home. So we're going to take different parts and share a little bit about what God is doing across the world. I hope you are encouraged this morning by how we can make a difference, a very real difference for the sake of the kingdom of God. And it really is not that great of a sacrifice or a difficult cost for us to have an incredible impact. And one of the important things for us as a team is that we went there and physically spent time with the people, and that is really everything. The last time I had been is in 2011, and so I wanted to go back, and we have some new people that we're working with. We have a new site, and certainly the children, many of them are new to us, so we got to meet them. And in doing all of that, our hearts are completely bound to them as people, and we get to see what God is really doing there. So I wanted to give you an overview here. Okay, so our ministry, Rise Liberia, our tagline is Educating a Generation. We're really focusing on educating children. This original vision in Liberia comes out of our mission director, Bill Davidson, and with Jean as well, and also Sis Kelly. She carries Liberia and the children very close to her heart, especially the education side of things. And Sarah being a master teacher librarian, Kelly being the principal, they have a lot to contribute with the educational side of things. So we as a team went for this purpose, Bill having the relationships with the men, the pastors that are there, and I also sharing some of that a little bit. Sarah doing the educational component. We have a school there that we basically adopted, and our oversight team here, where is the oversight team? We have, why don't you guys stand up? We just wanted to give a picture of this. You can see the banner over here. That is our local oversight team hanging on the wall, not the people, but the picture hanging on the wall there. I know Dusty and Jairus are part of that as well. So we're all part of just sewing into this school. And so we've adopted the school, sponsoring the kids, and we are working with them to have a vision on how we can really train up these children and educate the next generation. This is a picture of the outside of the school. So as we come out of the city of Monrovia, drive up, this is kind of what we would drive to every day. This is the picture of all the kids out front. Maybe we can bring some of these lights down on stage. And so the church, it's a church and school, My Father's House Christian Church, and this is the national headquarters. Isn't this great? for an international ministry. It's funny how in Liberia they have these big titles. So it's in Mambo Town, East Douala, and they have up there, this hope is an anchor of the soul. Isn't it amazing? Hope is very real to people who need hope. And so they have this beautiful ministry, a church and a school there, and we are coming alongside to partner. This is just a little bit of couple of the pictures of the kids gathered around. Aren't they beautiful? Here's some of them just expressing some of their joy. We feel like we're sort of a zoo creature or something. We're like a spectacle. The kids are like, these crazy Americans, we don't dress right, we don't talk right, we don't look right. So they look at these white people walking around, and they love to sneak up and kind of see what we're doing and peek through anything there is. If we're in like a little hut, they try to get between the wood pieces, and you see these little eyes, and then you just smile like this, and then they get all crazy. So you can see a bunch of the boys, they're going like this, right, in the picture. And being someone who grew up in the missionary land of Mexico as a young child, anytime you interact and you see people doing symbols, and then there's a bunch of, like 3 of the kids doing symbols, I'm like, before I show this picture, what are they actually saying? What does this mean? We don't, oh, how adorable those little guys are. They're doing this to us. But it actually means they're just going, like, this is a cab sign, straight ahead. So if you're picking up a KK, it's a little motorized vehicle, like a 3-wheel trike, a motorized big wheel that you sit in. So this is how they do transportation, either in taxi cabs or something like this. So they go like this, and that means I'm going straight ahead. Can you take me a little ways down the road? Or they say I'm going to this region of the city, or they say just like down a block kind of thing. So they have all these hand gestures. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that. So it's innocent. They're not giving us any foul signs. But look at those faces. Aren't they beautiful? Oh yes, and look at their new sports uniforms. Part of those we've purchased as well. I want to begin this morning with something. It's a verse from Psalm 41, 1 through 2. And this was from Barwea Tote. And he, as you can see, we'll introduce the team in a minute. But he's the national coordinator for Rise Liberia. He is our man on the ground there in Liberia. And he brought up this passage of Scripture as a blessing and exhortation to us. And so I thought we would begin with what was in his heart. And it's this in Psalm 41, 1 through 2. Blessed is the one who considers the poor. In the day of trouble, the Lord delivers him. The Lord protects him and keeps him alive. He is called blessed in the land. You do not give him up to the will of his enemies. And this was Barwea's encouragement and blessing over us, and what he prayed over us, that because we have regard for them as the poor, they just prayed that God would bless us abundantly for our ministry. And that's their prayer for each one of you who have partnered with us in this ministry. That's their prayer for us. Isn't that a good blessing, a good exhortation? We just receive that, certainly. I want to give you a picture of where Liberia is. You can see the continent of Africa, and then this used to be the old pepper coast, where there was pepper trading, and the city of Monrovia there is up to the northwest of Liberia on the coast. Some areas of that coast are just incredibly beautiful as far as the beaches and all that. And then there's the interior that goes all the way back up into the nation and toward the interior of the continent. But we're in the city. This is where the main population lives. I believe it's about 3 million or 3,500,000, somewhere in there. To draw in a little bit closer, you can see that heart that is up at the top. The city of Monrovia goes along the bottom there where it's sort of white shaded. And then there's a bridge that goes up over into Bushrod Island, and the school sits up there just to the northeast of New Crew Town. And Crew is one of the original indigenous tribes, and New Crew Town is a very rough area. The church and school is just across from that. And Barway was sharing with us that that actually is a very violent, crime-filled area in New Crew Town. To give you a little more perspective and context, this is an overview, satellite image of the property. You can see where the red bubble is there. That is the middle of the sort of a sandy parking lot, playground, not playground, but play area, courtyard type thing. It's just kind of a sandy dirt field. To the right of that dot is the building, the church building itself. Behind it is a foundation that they have laid where there's a little bit of grass growing up through there, if you can see that. Just to the left and below that red dot is the silver roof of a storage building. Just behind that is the public facilities, so it's basically an African outhouse. And so they created a toilet facility for the community in Mambo Town that they can use it. They lock it up periodically, but also allow the community to use their public toilet. So that is essentially, that rectangle there, if you can see around that red dot, is the main property that we visited and where the school is. Toward the front of the road, just to the right of that other building, across from the church building, on the same side of the property, there's a well that is there, and there's a hand pump on the well so they can bring water up, and they allow the community to use that as well. So even with very little, they are looking outwardly to bless the community. So here's another picture of the school building from the Sandy area. They have their Liberian flag there. That's the back of the school. And to the right, behind the school, there is a little makeshift structure. This is where we had our team meetings. And then where the vehicle is parked in that dirt is where we had our outdoor meetings. So the way that this went, we arrived there on a Friday night, late Sunday night. We stayed in one of the hotels that they now have available in Monrovia. And we got up Monday morning and we met with the team there, visited with the children, and then we found out they had scheduled, this is so typical when you travel, they had scheduled night revival meetings without telling us ahead of time. So Bill is in ministry all the time since Amy and I were in King School, always told us RFA, be ready for anything, RFA. So we've just grown to be ready for anything. So they had 4 nights of revival meetings that we had not planned for, which were beautiful times. So Monday we spent time with the team, had a revival meeting at night, and then each of the successive days our main goal was to try to get a sense of the facilities, meet the children, interview them, get information about them. So the other days we had talked with the kids and got as much information, all 50 of the kids except for the 4 that were missing. So that was the bulk of our time, and we also met with the management team to talk through a lot of different things with strategy and really get a sense for what their needs are. Sarah trained the teachers. So we're going to go through a lot of this just with some pictures today, just to give you an idea of what this trip was about. I want to go back because I forgot to mention that on this slide, you can see basically right in the middle is some green, grassy space. So the pastor of the church, he owns that parcel right in the middle, a little bit to the lower left of the center. And that is a grassy area that they use for agriculture. And they grow various greens and plants that we don't even know what they are, most of them. And they allow the community to use that property as well. So with the church facility, those grounds, and that middle field, this composes the vision for what we are looking to do in the future. So I'm going to have Bill just come, and he's going to introduce the management team for us and just explain a little bit about them. These are the boots on the ground there when we're away. So let's welcome Bill.
Thank you, and we want to try and communicate to you this morning just how amazingly grateful everybody is there for you, this church, this community, and our church out in Western New York, who are supporting them in this way. It is beyond their belief They try to find the words. It's embarrassing to sit there when they give such excellent praise and thanksgiving to God for what you are doing. And we do explain to them that you are giving sacrificially. They're beginning to understand that we do not have a basement full of money that we just go and dig up and we do whatever we like with all our millions. They do understand, and they genuinely know that you're giving sacrificially, which is truly wonderful. One of the greatest blessings, because we dare not go ahead without this kind of foundation, is the team there. We here are called the oversight team. And this is what we call the management team, and they are, as John said, the boots on the ground. And the wonderful thing about them is that they're all quite different. And they come from a culture, in their actual African culture, and people with whom they have worked in the recent past, where you do exactly what you're told. And for some years when I was going there, we only found this out when Kelly and I went last year, and even more this year, that they were literally told, do not speak to the white people, they do not want to speak to you. But there's a culture of absolute obedience. And it's wonderful now to see these men doing exactly what we want to see birthed in the hearts of the children, which is thinking creatively, agreeing and disagreeing and learning how to speak to each other. And they are great examples of, well, what do you think? And getting creative input. And the kind of things that we might take for granted. And the team is they're quite different from each other. They are beautifully complementary. This is really a team that's been put together by the Lord. Over there is Morris Flomo, and you'll see that he's actually the national coordinator of Liberia Allied Ministries, which is the pastors and the churches that have joined together to walk together in unity and encouraging one another. And they're out into the counties. There are somewhere between 30, 40, and 50 churches that belong, and Morris is the coordinator of that. And that's something that's grown out of our association as well. And Morris is a teacher. They're all educators. He's a teacher, a ministry man, and he is particularly skilled with phonics. And believe me, phonics are going to be a foundation for us, because some of you may have heard about learning to read and to speak phonetically and pronouncing things in a correct way. And we have a program here that was created for our final program that you'll hear about a little, our farewell. And you'll see that, and even in national daily newspapers and so on, there's very, very creative in their spelling and their grammar. Because for years now, for almost a generation, there's been very little education, even for those who are teaching. But these are educated men, and Morris is an educated man, and he loves putting in the foundation of phonics. They understand that to have any place in the world at large, they're going to have to learn to speak, read, and then speak clearly, and phonics is something that helps with that. So we call him our phonics apostle, because he goes from church to church, from school to school, teaching phonics. Next to him is Barwea Toto, who is our national coordinator for Rise Liberia, and for many years he has been a teacher and principal. He's a college-educated man, and he is a clear speaker, which is a great blessing to us, because when you hear Liberian being spoken between each other, it's very difficult to understand. Well, you hear Liberian spoken between each other, right there we go, understand, huh? That's just what I said in English. And so Barwea is very often our translator, also Morris. They are beautiful men, distinct and different in their own ways. Washington Tarpe, he is the pastor of our Father's House Church, and this is the property that he has handed over to Rise Liberia. And you heard John speaking about even that field and the property and everything. All of this will be given into Rise Liberia as we incorporate and become established in the next few months. Washington is a great personality. He's a beautiful pastor. And they have a way of just telling the children exactly what they want them to do. Go away from here! Go away from here! You know, that kind of thing. But also, you can tell when we drive away or when we pass a house and there are 5 or 6 little children, Pastor! 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 And they come and they hug him and he hugs them. And so he's a greatly loved man, a respected man in the community. And and he has established this school some time ago and just loves our involvement there. And then at the end is Samson Kwetu, and he is from Kakata, which is in a different county. This is in Montserrado County, which is where the city of Monrovia is, but Kakata is in Margibi County, which is several miles away. He would turn up pretty early in the morning. What time did he say he left Kakata one morning to be with us? By 9, I think it was like 4 or 4:30 in the morning. He got up, and he doesn't have his own vehicle, so they'll find whichever way they can to come into town. But Samson is the the Liberia Allied Ministries coordinator for Margibi County, also has a great school up there, and one or two of us here, Nate and Joey and I, went up to Kakata, and we saw the ordination of about 50 pastors one night, and it was quite a moving night. And one of the pictures I have in my annals is of a tall, fine young man leading the way as they marched in very somberly, and they had all somehow got hold of black suits and white shirts, and they all walked in, and it was actually Samson who was leading them in that night for the ordination quite some years ago. So there's the team working together, learning how to blend their hearts and walk in brotherly unity together. Now, Africans know what it is to be faithful. They know what it is to work together, but we needed the creativity that is coming from being peaceful and secure and safe enough to agree and disagree and discuss and ask for each other's opinion. It's beautiful to see that kind of co-submission in the team there, breaking some of the old rituals that haven't worked too well for Africa over the years, of the absolute authority of somebody that may not know what they're talking about. So we see in the children creative, what's the term we use for critical thinking? Yes, excuse me. On a good day, my vocabulary disappears after this week and coming home late last night. So critical thinking, which doesn't mean you're just being negative and critical. It means you're being creative, thinking of alternatives, and good to see that being birthed here in our team and their life with us. They deeply respect the oversight team, very submissive and yet strong at the same time, and tremendously grateful for everything that you are doing to support this ministry.
This is, when we first arrived, this is a beautiful thing. We walk into their building, and this is the joy that they have, is that they had, with all of their limitations, taken a photo that we had put together on Facebook. And they got it off Facebook and somehow got it into a computer and got this sign put together, and they hung it up over their administrative wing and showed this to us, and they're going to try to find nails and tacks so they can put it all up there and show us. And then they're pointing through each member of the oversight team and wrote that. So that's the sign. This is the same one, right, that we brought back? So the management team of Rise Liberia. Liberia welcomes the oversight team of Rise Liberia, New York, USA. And then what does it say at the bottom? Yes, we wish you a blessed day in Liberia. This is the heart of the team there, and I want to just say that part of my purpose in Liberia was to get to know these guys. I had known Barwea before, but I feel in my own heart, after spending the time that we did with them, these are really quality men of integrity, men of God who truly have a passion to see these children raised up and educated to the glory of God. This is such a relief to us, because to work across a continent, across the Atlantic in a different continent, totally different culture, has all kinds of challenges. So they are just wonderful men of God, and we're thankful for them. The next one, I'm going to have Sarah just explain a little bit of the next couple slides. She doesn't know what's coming, but I'll pop them up and she can share a little bit as we go. Let's welcome Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Just before I start talking about the educational side, just a couple of key things. So going in, this is my second time going to Liberia, and I was telling Bill and John on the way home that it had such a different feel to it than our previous trips, and I've been trying to kind of put my finger on, like, what was so different? What was the big shift? And one of the things that was just so different in the spirit of this trip was this wasn't a trip focused on being inundated with all of the problems. We can be paralyzed by that, and there's that overwhelming weight when you're just bombarded with problem and challenge after challenge, and they're there. You don't have to look for them. The challenges are very obvious. But this was a trip that was focused all about how can we together look for solutions? How can we be a team, all of us, the management and the oversight team, together find solutions? And it was just a real shift in the heart of the trip, in the heart of the people about, we're looking for solutions. We're not going to spend our time dwelling on the overwhelmingness of the problems. Instead, we're going to look for those solutions and those steps that we can take. And that's an amazing release of freedom to be able to do something and move forward. So that was really encouraging to me about this trip. So, and all of the people and all of the different parts. So this was the time I actually, while Bill and John were having this time with the some of the management team there, unpacking the resources that we sent, some of the teaching tools and the notebooks for the students. I was inside teaching and reading to the kids and really experiencing the challenge of teaching in that environment. And so, this, the top picture, I just want you to imagine a concert, the volume level that you hear at a concert. That's what you're teaching in the midst of. Because there are 150 students in that space, give or take, probably closer to 175, if they're all there. And they are divided into, there's a nursery class up front which has 45 kids in it. 45 nursery students. They're really super quiet, nursery kids. So that's what you walk into. And then there is kindergarten 1 and kindergarten 2, which each have about 30 kids in them, in those classes. And then you have 1, 2 are joined together, so grades 1 and 2 are in one of the classrooms, which is really they're just divided by chalkboards, which really muffle the sound a lot of a blackboard. And then 3, 4 is up on the left, the closest to us, that's 3, 4, and then the 5th and 6th grade. And the 3rd and 4th and the 5th and 6th grade classes are by far the smallest classes. The class sizes drastically drop in number. The 5th and 6th grade class are each 8 kids. So there are 8 5th graders and 8 6th graders right now. So you can imagine, and add to that the teaching style in Liberia is 100% direct instruction. A teacher up lecturing, and most of the time, and very often, the students then repeating back what they just were taught. So now you have 150 kids in a space like, I don't know, a third of, just from here over, not even. And they are teaching loudly enough to be heard over the teacher next to them, and then having their classes chant back. And then when they have a student get up and give an answer, then, and this I actually found really encouraging, they would have the rest of the class clap for them. I really am very impressed by the hearts and energy and spirit of the teachers in our school also. They have tremendous energy to teach in that environment. And they are very passionately, they're passionate about their students and passionate about education. They wanted to see their students do well. You could see that in them, in their rapport with the students and the way they were really wanting to hear from them, and that's not always the case in that culture, that's a lot harder than just direct delivery. So one of the days, one of my goals was I read a story at each grade level, and each of those stories had a key concept. So my strategy in this was to connect with the students, to experience that teaching in their environment and really be able to know how to best help and support them through that, but also then to model for the teachers some different types of teaching strategies. So in the stories, they were things like, we talked about innovation with the 5th and 6th graders, and what does that mean, and can you be innovators, and really having some rich, it's hard for them to be brave enough to answer my questions because they don't want to get it wrong when they're talking to me, so trying to pull them out a little bit. And so some of the other things we talked about were creativity, and with the littlest kids, with the nursery, we read a story that had to do with kindness. And the books that I took to kind of begin just the seed of a library for them were primarily books that featured African children and very authentic experiences that they would relate to. So wanting them to experience literature that was about kids who they could relate to. So that was one of the highlights of the trip for me, was that day spent in the classrooms with the kids. And that led into then really allowing the teachers to connect with me also in a way that they saw me as an educator and they could trust what I had to share with them. So then we had a day where I spent with the teachers, and the bulk of our time together, I really wanted them to be sharing with me. You know, we can go and we see the challenges and the things that we think are priorities, you know, and this is where we should start, because obviously to us this is the priority, but needing to hear from them, what are your priorities? You're the ones who are here day in and day out, so what are the challenges that you see as first priorities? And so the teachers all shared those things with us, and they were candid, and those were really good conversations. Most of these teachers have not gone to college. Most of these teachers are good students, and they are passionate and motivated to continue to learn and to lead their students, and they want to be educated. But the reality of that is very challenging. Pastor Washington talked about his goal is to have 3 of them at a time, and he's committed to working to get them all their credentials and education, but that's a process. So they are very hungry for those times. So after hearing their hearts, we then talked about some just very specific strategies that they could use. And the 2 things that I focused on with them is that reading and writing make our students think deeper. It's as simple as that. So if you provide students the opportunity to read and to write creatively, and that's not all about mechanics, some of that is about just that opportunity to be creative, that will give them opportunity to think more deeply. And so because of that, the dynamics in their classroom, that there are 2 grade levels in a room, what that means for them right now is that only half of the students are being taught at any given time. So they take turns. Okay, it's first grade's turn. Second graders sit quietly and do not make a sound. And the first graders are taught. And then the bell sounds and they switch. Now first graders, sit quietly. Margaret, you know what that means. Sit quietly, do not make a sound while we teach the other class. So we talked about what if during those times when you're not directly, you can't possibly directly teach. We understand that is a challenge, that is a reality right now. So what if during those times you have 5 books that they pass around the classroom and they are reading, and there is tremendous value in that time. So that was one of the key things. And then also, here's all of our amazing teachers. Then also, students learn in different ways. Some of them learn very well visually in that, and auditorily. So in the traditional sense of how they're teaching, delivering instruction, some students will learn very well that way, but not all of them. Many of our students need to do something to learn. And so we talked about, I gave them stacks of index cards, and we just went through a whole list of strategies of things that you could do with students, and these, again, things that they could be doing when not being directly instructed, with only index cards. So trying to put something in their hands right now, immediately, to make an impact in the meantime while we're working towards some much bigger shifts and changes. So that was just a really amazing time, and already have established some next steps that I'm going to be doing this week and connecting with them, and not waiting until we go back next time. So we look forward to just really some exciting things with those teachers. So.
Anyway, Sarah was quite impressive to the team there. When she just did something this simple, she took the book, opened it, and started reading to the kids. You could see the body language of the children just all of a sudden tune in, and they were just captivated. And it's that simple. Just doing these simple little things makes such a difference. I want to go through some just facility things quickly. Before we introduce some of the students, we want to talk about a couple of the students. But this is Morris. Kelly had sent the phonics pack to him as a gift, so he's smiling receiving that. We passed out all the composition notebooks, the sharpeners, the pencils, laptops. They were grateful for all of those things. On the bottom here, you can see they have a plan and a plan for the future building in the back, so they had already laid the concrete for that. That could be as many as 6 classrooms per story, depending on how many stories we can build there. Here is another picture of just the back of the property looking forward to the road. This is the public facilities. Doesn't that look attractive? How many of you like our toilets here at Church of the King? They're pretty nice. This is what you get to use there. And so there's no plumbing, no running water. You just go into the toilet and then it goes into a tank out back, and it's out of sight, out of mind. This again is that little hut they built out back prior to our arrival. This is the well. So this is people in the community coming to get water, and we need to treat this and have some kind of water filtration. Right now it's not potable water, so they can't actually drink it. Here is the main school office. So you can see how beautiful that is. So that's like Luan, thin 1/8-inch wood paneling with a couple sticks, and not all the way to the top, so all the noise just comes right in. This is some of the land that they want to use for agriculture. Actually just a beautiful property filled with water just about a foot down. You dig in and there's the water table down there, so they can grow a lot of food, but it gets flooded in the rainy season. This is just a picture of some of the kids gathered around, just so excited to be with us. And I think we will now have Bill just introduce one of the students that they're sponsoring, and we want to just show you a little bit tell their story a little bit, show you a brief video just to kind of give you a more intimate feel of who these children are and how we're impacting their lives. So, Bill, I'll just put the things in. Okay.
Now, we want you to know that there's nothing stopping any of you going to Liberia to meet your children. Nothing at all. That is, if you can afford it. It's very expensive to get there. But for a couple of $1,000, you could go and come back and you'd have a decent place to stay. There's nothing quite like touching and speaking to and finding out the lifestyle of the child that you're sponsoring. Now, I know some of you will never be able to do that, but we just want you to know that these are real live children, and this is one of the children that Jean and I are sponsoring. It's called Mohammed Sharif, and his original photograph was either very sad or very angry. And when we looked at it, I immediately thought, let's take this guy. He's called Mohammed, and he looks as if he's ready to have a fight. But if we look at the contrast there, this is the real boy. He's just, as you can see, just a little bit shorter than me, but a very strong young man. We were joking, I think he's actually 33, because he's quite muscly, he's a strong young man. But the beautiful thing is, he is the sole survivor of his family from Ebola. And one of his relatives, who was called a sister, and now calls herself, I'm his mother, lived in Monrovia, and he's now living with his mother. You see, as soon as you be able to take care of somebody, it's not to do with genetics or who gave birth or whatever, you're either the father or the mother. And so he's now got one of his sisters, who may actually be a biological sister, who is now his mother, staying with her. But the rest of the family all went to Ebola, all died of Ebola. And somehow this little guy came through. But it was wonderful to see the contrast there, isn't it? Of a child before, and then, I mean, he must have wondered, as we often think, when they came out for photographs, what are they doing? Why are they taking a photograph of me? You know, some of the kids were smiling, but very few of them. Because it was, oh, you come out, we take a photo of you, and we send it to America. And then, oh no, what's going to happen, you know? So you can almost see the concern, the difficulty, the backstory, if you like, of Mohammed. But this is the real kid in his new sports kit. Every child is sponsored, got a new uniform and sports outfit. And there he is. So that's part of the testimony, isn't it, of what happens when your sponsorship goes to a young person's life. So
First up here, we want to give you a picture of what we did. We did a little interview asking each student what grade they're in, what's their age, what do they like doing outside of school, what do they hope to do in the future, and do they want to say anything back to their sponsor. So take a look at this video of this interview from Mohammed.
Well, I'm here now with this fine young man. What is your name?
My name is Mohammed Sharif.
So, Mohammed, how old are you now?
Me?
Yeah.
16.
And what class are you in? What grade? Okay, good. Now, we know you work hard at school, but what do you like doing after school?
I do my housework. After doing that, I take my book and read.
Good, well done. Now, when you think of the future, and God has a good future for you, what would you like to be when you grow up?
Businessman.
Sorry?
Businessman.
Excellent, businessman. Yeah, we need businessmen in Liberia. So is there anything you'd like to say to the sponsor family back in America?
I want to thank you for this sponsor and God bless them. I didn't have more money to sponsor me.
Good. And Mohammed, we heard that your family was lost in the Ebola time, but you were spared. So God has a future for you, and we say God bless you in that future. Amen? Well done.
Isn't that beautiful? We, our kids can notice, we ask them, what do you do outside of school? And they'd often say, I help cook, I help take care of my sister, I go to work. So I asked some of the kids, what do you do for fun? One of the children said, fun? Like quizzically, what is that? What is fun? So their life, obviously they do have fun, but they don't think the same way as our children who don't have to take care of a lot of those things. I want to introduce the young man that we sponsor. This is Collie Johnson. He is an orphan, and I was able to meet with him and talk with him, and young Collie explained to me that his parents were off in the bush, and he now lived with who is his aunt and uncle. And however, Pastor Washington explained to me that his parents had passed away. So it may be that they're telling him his parents just went away to the bush. That's what his aunt and uncle tell him. it's hard to know the stories of how things are explained, but he is orphaned by his parents, and Pastor Washington said that his parents had passed away. And then in conversation, I was able to find out that he has a sister and a brother who are also in the school. But just being able to meet him after we had sponsored him, have the picture on our refrigerator and pray for him, just a wonderful young man. I met his sister when we were talking. I said, they're here at the school, can you go get them? So we got them and brought them out, and this is his little sister Monique, she is 7, and brother Cornelius. And just this beautiful family of these 3 children, cared for by the aunt and the uncle, who are also mom and dad, because that's what they take on those terms. This is mother, this is father. And I met his mother during the school presentation. But we had asked him what he wanted to do, and he wants to be a mathematician. And he's 13 years old. We said, well, we have a son who is 13, and we call him the math magician, because Ethan is very good at mathematics. So Collie wants to be a mathematician when he grows up. So I spent time, this is a little different kind of a video, but I spent time with Collie, and I pulled out my phone and I started showing him pictures of the things that we do back home and some of the things our kids do, and we talked about that. So I'm just doing a video of me sitting there with the 3 kids, so take a look at this. Can you say hi? This is Monique and Cornelius. So can you say hi to my family? And this is their big brother, Collie.
Hi.
Can you say hi, Ethan?
Hi, Ethan.
And hi, Lauren?
Hi, Lauren. And hi, Hannah.
Yeah, that's good. You remember the names. And then my wife's name is Amy.
Hi, Amy.
So what did we look at today? Did you see some video of them playing basketball?
Yeah, saw a video of Hannah and Ethan.
And what else did you see?
I saw snow in the country.
Yes, and up on the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And what we call skiing. We saw them going down the hill
Yeah.
and skiing. And some snowmobiling.
Yeah, I saw snow on building.
Yes, right. Very good. Snow on building. Well, can you say bye? We'll see you later.
Bye, see you later.
Can you say bye? See you later. Can you say bye? Yes, very good. Oh, it's going. Can you say hi? So Sarah's going to come in just a second, but I did want to point this out. I'd shown who our family was, and I said, so can you say hi to Ethan? Can you say hi to Lauren? And then before I said, can you say hi, he said, hi, Hannah. I think he took note of Hannah, you know what I'm saying? So let's have Sarah come.
So this is Tata. Tata is the young girl who we sponsor there in Liberia. So I want to just share this also before I talk about Tata, because I'll start crying at that point probably. But so going into Liberia this time, and I was anticipating, most of you know, that I'm a crier. That my heart is very sensitive, and I cry over people because I just love them. And so I was anxious about that on this trip, being there and just being a weepy mess, and that how productive I could be if I was just heartbroken the whole time. And in the song Oceans at the right before we spoke, there's the line, your grace is, tell me exactly what it is. I wrote it. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. And boy, that was true in this week. I didn't cry once speaking to people. My voice shook a couple of times, but I didn't ever got to that point where I couldn't say what I needed to say because I was too emotional. God's grace was just so apparent to me this week to carry me through those deepest waters of what could have every single moment been breaking me emotionally. So even in these moments, meeting with Tata and her family was just so wonderful, and I didn't get nearly enough time with her. There's just never enough time in each of the days that we're there. So, but after we had met, as soon as she got out of school that day, we were actually then, right after the school day ended, which is at 1:30, their day ends earlier, because of the heat, really. It's so hot. The afternoon is a break time for people because of that heat. But as soon as she left, and we were having a management team meeting with the guys, but she came back with her mother. She had gone home immediately and told her mom that I was there. And her mom came to see me and to meet me. And what she said to me, she hugged me really tightly, and she said, and she hugged Tata, and she said, "My child is your child." And that is so much of the spirit of the families. It's just to join together and love our children together. And that it's not a matter of that you're going to give them over, or there's like a tug or a pull or any kind of boundaries in that, but just this sense of let's come alongside each other and just pour love into our children. And in our the last day that we were there, they had a meeting with the parents that came to thank us, and the kids had a celebration, and it was a really beautiful time. And in that time, the families really just spoke that heart of loving, that we want to love their kids. And during that time, they had each of us come up and share. And what I shared was who my kids are, because I want them to be loving my kids too. And that idea of just the strength of our love for one another and continued prayers for one another's kids, and that there can't be too much love for our kids. We can never have too much people pouring into their lives. And so this is Tata, my daughter in Liberia, and my sister, Sieta, her mother. And she brought, in turn, her mother. And so I met Tata's grandmother as well the next day before I left. Can I lead into the kids who weren't there?
Yeah.
Because, so there were, you already heard that there were 4 kids who we didn't get to meet, 4 of our sponsored kids because of illness. One of those boys is Tata's brother, Peter. And Peter is actually out of the country, receiving medical care in Ghana, I believe. Guinea. Because he was actually poisoned. From what they have said to us, that a witch in their community actually poisoned his food. And so he has liver damage and something with his liver, but he is responding to treatment. They are very hopeful that he will return home soon. So that's Peter Jones. So we would invite you to be in prayer for Peter. Peter's sponsor is Barbara Brown, who is, many of you know Barbara as wonderful. She's like an auntie to my kids. She served alongside Wendy in Colombia for years. So, you know, she will be diligently praying for Peter as well. Bernice Ketter, who actually Kelly and Douglas, the sponsor, she was suffering from malaria, they believe. So she was not there, but she's being treated locally, and so they are hopeful. The other 2 kids, we weren't clear. They didn't have any information about what it was that they were ill from, but we just are believing for Thomas Say and Alfonso Williams, that both of them will be recovering and returning to school soon as well. So Peter is the boy who is in Guinea being treated. But just pray for the health of all of our kids. It is a challenging situation that they live in. So we surround them for prayers of protection for that as well. I'm going to hand it back over.
Want to do the video for interview?
For Tata's interview? Sure, yes. Let's hear from Tata. Okay, I'm here in Liberia, and I have a very special time with this young lady. What is your name?
Miss Tata Charles.
Okay, and Tata, how old are you?
12 years old.
12, and what grade are you in, Tata?
5th.
5th grade, all right. And Tata, what do you like to do when you're at home?
My mom to cook. That was my lesson.
Wonderful, okay. And when you grow up, what would you like to be?
Become a politician.
To become a politician, wonderful. Liberia could use a good politician like you. And do you want to say anything to the family at home?
I wish I could see them.
Yeah, they wish they could see you too. All right, you want to just say hello to them? Say hello to the camera. Awesome, great, thank you.
We have so much this morning that we could present, and obviously we've got to stop somewhere, but we wanted to give you a picture of a little bit of the reality of their lives there. These stories, we hear one story after another, Ebola, poisoning by a witch, and they just talk like this is, they fell off a bike and they had to go to the ER. And the kids just go on. And even Mohammed, who lost his whole family to Ebola, he walks around and we would just smile at him, and he'd smile back with these big bright teeth, and I started calling him Muscle Man and started grabbing his arms like this and like comparing. So then he's walking around there, the other kids are calling him Muscle Man. Oh, you're Muscle Man! Oh! So just so many beautiful things. And the grace of God is so evident and powerful in people's lives. And these kids are just able to go on with this incredible resilience. We had very little time because we were so busy, but there was this moment, the kids were out on recess, and I just wanted to go out and catch the kids a little bit. And so there were a few, and I'd peek out around and I'd wave at them, and then they'd smile back and kind of run and hide and then gather around. So I walked out to this place where all these kids were gathered. There was about 5 or 6 boys gathered there, and as I went and stood out and started talking to them, more of the kids just started flocking all around me. And so I just asked them different questions about their day and what they like to do, and that led to a conversation about music. And I said, do you all want to sing? And would you please sing for me? So gathered around, they just began, and it was Tata and a couple of the other girls who took the lead on that, and they said, we would love to sing for you. So this is a video that we can finish with today. Just a little bit of their spirit shared with us. Thank you. You are wonderful singers.